Imagine being a college student with an idea so revolutionary that it will eventually reshape how billions of people communicate across the entire planet. Imagine having that idea, sharing it with 3 best friends, and being so close to changing the world together. Now imagine one of them selling that billion-dollar idea to a businessman for merely $1,000, then losing that money to gambling. 20 years later, while his 3 friends watch their idea transform into a global corporation worth multiple billions, he reveals the devastating truth about why he committed the most expensive betrayal in business history. This is the story of greed, desperation, and the price of a choice that destroyed everything. The 4 Dreamers, MIT students before the internet explosion. It was 1994 when 4 friends sat in a dormitory room at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and imagined the future. These were not ordinary students. These were 4 brilliant minds who understood computers, programming languages, and network architecture at levels that most engineers would never achieve. Their names were Marcus Sterling, David Cho, James Richardson, and Thomas Mendez. 4 names that would eventually become synonymous with revolution, though only Marcus, David, and James would receive credit for that revolution. Thomas would become invisible. Thomas would become the ghost in the machine. Thomas would make the choice that would haunt him for the rest of his life. In 1994, the internet was still in its infancy. The World Wide Web had existed for only a few years. Most people did not even own computers. Those who did were connected through slow dial-up modems that shrieked and hissed like mechanical creatures, fighting to establish connection. The idea of people gathering in virtual spaces to communicate with each other seemed like science fiction. The idea of a global network where millions of people could share their thoughts, their photos, their lives with each other seemed impossible. But Marcus Sterling saw it clearly. Marcus possessed a vision that transcended the current technological limitations. One night, lying in bed unable to sleep, Marcus had an epiphany. He realized that the future belonged not to technology companies that sold hardware or software. The future belonged to companies that connected people. The future belonged to platforms that transformed isolation into community. He woke his 3 closest friends and told them about his vision. David Cho, a computer science prodigy from Taiwan whose parents had immigrated to the United States when he was 3 years old, immediately understood the implications. James Richardson, a mathematics expert from Princeton who had transferred to MIT for his graduate studies, began calculating the potential scale of such a network. And Thomas Mendez, from a working-class family in New Jersey, listened quietly, and then asked the question that would define everything. How could they build this before anyone else understood it was possible? The 4 friends began their work in earnest. They coded through the nights. They filled whiteboards with equations and network architectures. They sketched out interface designs on napkins and coffee-stained paper. They imagined features that would not become standard in social networks for decades to come. Profile pictures, friend networks, groups based on interests, the ability to send direct messages, the ability to share photographs and videos, the ability to know what your friends were thinking and doing in real time. This was 1994, before any of the major social networking platforms existed. Marcus, David, James, and Thomas were years and years ahead of their time. They created the first prototype in 1995. It was crude by today's standards. Slow internet connections made it nearly unusable. The graphics were primitive. The interface was clunky. But the core idea was brilliant. The fundamental architecture was sound. The network functioned. They showed it to professors. The professors were baffled. What was the purpose of this thing, they asked. Why would anyone want to look at pictures of people they already knew? Why would anyone waste time reading what their friends were doing when they could simply call them on the telephone? The professors did not understand, but that was because the internet was still too slow. That was because computers were still too expensive. That was because the world was not yet ready for the revolution that Marcus, David, James, and Thomas had invented. The 4 friends decided to keep their project secret. They registered a company name, NetConnect. They created a business plan. They began reaching out to early investors. They were 22 years old. They had no money. They had no business experience. But they had something more valuable. They had an idea that was going to change the world. Then came the moment that would define the entire trajectory of their lives. The moment when one of the four friends looked at the future and decided that greed was more important than friendship. The moment when desperation overcame loyalty. The moment when Thomas Mendez made a choice that would cost him and his friends billions of dollars in future earnings. But you do not know yet which of the four it was. You do not know which one succumbed to temptation. You do not know which one looked at their brilliant creation and thought about personal gain instead of collective success. The mystery is now presented to you. Which of the four best friends committed the betrayal that would reshape the course of technological history? Pause here and consider. Who would you guess? The ambitious Marcus Sterling, who pushed the hardest for commercialization? The practical David Cho, who always worried about money? The idealistic James Richardson, who wanted to keep the technology free? Or the quiet Thomas Mendez, who rarely spoke unless he had something important to say? What would you do if you had invented something that would eventually be worth billions? Would you be able to resist temptation if someone offered you money for it? Would you stay loyal to your partners? Or would you take the opportunity to profit individually? In 1996, all four friends were sitting in an apartment in Cambridge, Massachusetts, working late into the night on the third version of their social network platform. They had spent more than 1 year developing it. They had invested their own money. They had borrowed from family members. They had maxed out credit cards. They were broke. They were exhausted. They were beginning to doubt whether their revolutionary idea would ever become reality. Marcus wanted to approach venture capitalists. David thought they should try to license the technology to established computer companies. James wanted to keep developing it for free and wait until the world was ready. Thomas said nothing for a long time. Then he asked to speak privately with one of his friends. The meeting that changed everything. Thomas makes his choice. Thomas Mendez asked to speak privately with David Cho. They went to a quiet corner of the campus, away from the dormitory where Marcus and James were working. David could see immediately that something was troubling his friend. Thomas had always been calm, composed, pragmatic. But today, his hands were trembling slightly. His eyes were darting around as if he was afraid of being overheard. "I need to tell you something," Thomas said quietly, "and I need you to promise me that you will hear me out completely before you react." David felt his stomach tighten. He had known Thomas since freshman year. He recognized this tone. This was the tone of someone about to say something that would change everything. "What is it?" David asked. "I was contacted by a businessman," Thomas said. "His name is Robert Hartwell. He is a venture capitalist based in Boston. He heard about our project through a mutual contact. He thinks our social network idea is brilliant, but he does not think Marcus is the right person to lead it. He does not think that we should try to build this ourselves. He thinks we should sell the technology to his company." David's face went pale. "We are not selling our technology. We are going to build it ourselves. We are going to change the world with this." "Listen to me," Thomas said urgently. "Hartwell has offered me money. Enough money to get my family out of debt. My parents are struggling. My father had a heart attack 2 years ago and the medical bills nearly destroyed them. They are about to lose their house. Hartwell is offering me enough to save them." David felt a wave of conflicting emotions. He understood Thomas's situation. He knew about the financial struggles, but he also knew that what they had created was going to be worth billions someday. He could feel it. The technology was revolutionary. The market was going to explode within 5 or 10 years. Anyone who owned this platform at that time would become obscenely wealthy. "How much is he offering?" David asked. Thomas hesitated. $50,000. David actually laughed. It was not a laugh of joy, but of disbelief. $50,000 for something worth billions? Thomas, that is insane. That is crazy. In 5 years, this technology will be worth $1 billion. In 10 years, it could be worth $10 billion. And you want to sell it for $50,000? "My parents are about to be homeless," Thomas said quietly. "I cannot wait 5 years. I cannot wait 10 years. They need help now." This was the crossroads. This was the moment where Thomas could have said no. This was the moment where he could have held firm to the dream that the four friends shared. This was the moment where loyalty could have triumphed over desperation. But desperation is a powerful force. Desperation whispers in your ear and tells you that the future is uncertain, that certainty in hand is worth more than dreams in the distance, that you need to think about your family first. "I want you to speak to Hartwell with me," Thomas said. "I want you to see what he is proposing. I want you to hear him out. And if after you hear him you still think it is a terrible idea, I will tell him no. But I need to at least know that the offer is real. I need to at least explore the possibility. David was torn. His loyalty to Thomas pulled him in one direction. His commitment to the dream pulled him in another direction. Finally, he said, "Okay, I will meet Hartwell with you, but I am telling you right now, I think this is a mistake." The meeting took place in an upscale restaurant in downtown Boston. Robert Hartwell was a man in his 50s, dressed in an expensive suit, with the confidence of someone who had made money in the technology sector and was now looking for the next revolutionary idea to invest in or acquire. Hartwell explained his vision. He had a small technology company that created specialized communication software for business environments. His company was struggling. His revenue was stagnant, but he believed that if he could acquire revolutionary social networking technology, he could license it to large corporations and transform his business model entirely. "Imagine," Hartwell said, "a private social network designed specifically for corporate environments. Employees could communicate internally. Departments could share information seamlessly. Companies could streamline their internal communications through a platform that is specifically designed for business use. This technology could revolutionize workplace communication." It was actually not a terrible idea. The corporate communication space was largely untapped in 1996. Companies were not thinking about internal social platforms, but Hartwell saw the potential. "How much are you offering?" David asked directly. $100,000, Hartwell said, "for the complete technology, all code, all architecture, and all intellectual property rights. $50,000 paid immediately, and $50,000 paid 6 months after the sale is finalized." David looked at Thomas. Thomas was staring at the table. "We need to discuss this with our other 2 partners," David said. "This is not just our decision to make. Marcus and James are equal partners in this." "Of course," Hartwell replied smoothly, "but I am hoping that you will advocate for the sale. I think you are a pragmatist, David. I think you understand that having certainty now is better than chasing a dream that might never materialize. You do not know yet what Thomas will do. You do not know yet whether he will convince his partners to sell. You do not know yet whether the betrayal is about to unfold. But pause here and consider. If you were David Cho, would you convince your partners to accept this offer? Would you choose security and certainty? Or would you risk everything on the dream of what your technology could become?" When David and Thomas returned to MIT, they called Marcus and James to an emergency meeting. The 4 friends sat in their favorite pizza restaurant off campus, and Thomas explained the offer from Robert Hartwell. Marcus's response was immediate and absolute. "No, absolutely not. We are not selling. This is our life's work. This is going to be the future of human communication. We are not selling it for $100,000. James was more thoughtful. He ran calculations in his head. $100,000 is not enough, he said finally. If Hartwell believes this technology is worth acquiring, then it is worth more than $100,000. We should counteroffer. We should ask for a percentage of Hartwell's company or equity in his firm in exchange for the technology. David supported this perspective. James is right. If we are going to sell, we need to structure the deal so that we benefit from the future success of the platform. Thomas listened to all of this and felt something shifting inside him. He realized that his friends were right. $100,000 was peanuts compared to what this technology would eventually be worth. But his parents were struggling. His father was sick. The medical bills were mounting, and Thomas was beginning to feel desperate. Hartwell had been clear when they met. This was a one-time offer. Take it or leave it. If they came back with counteroffers, the deal was off the table. Hartwell had other options. He could wait for competitors to develop similar technology. He could hire his own engineers to build something similar. So Thomas faced a choice: honor his friends and their shared dream, or secretly negotiate with Hartwell and betray his partners. He chose betrayal. The secret negotiation. Thomas commits the ultimate betrayal. 3 days after the group meeting where Marcus, David, and James rejected the sale, Thomas arranged another meeting with Robert Hartwell. This meeting took place not in a restaurant, but in a small office in a technology building in Cambridge. Thomas came alone. Hartwell knew immediately that Thomas was there to negotiate on behalf of the 4 friends, but Thomas corrected him. Thomas explained that he was there to negotiate for himself. "I want to make a deal," Thomas said. "I want to sell the technology, but I want to do it in a way that appears legitimate." Hartwell leaned back in his chair, a slight smile crossing his face. This was what he had anticipated. This was why he had offered so much money for an incomplete team deal. He knew that eventually one of them would break. "I am listening," Hartwell said. Thomas explained that he would give Hartwell access to all the code, all the documentation, and all the technical specifications for the social network platform. He would also sign an agreement stating that he was authorized to sell the intellectual property rights. It was a lie, a devastating, unforgivable lie, a betrayal of the highest order against the three men who had trusted him completely. "But there is a complication," Thomas continued. "My three partners do not know I am here. They think I agreed with them to reject your offer. If you simply take the code and build the product, they will know immediately that it came from me. They will be able to trace the code, recognize the architecture, and realize what I did. They will destroy me socially and professionally." Hartwell was impressed by Thomas's pragmatism. Here was a young man who understood not just the value of what he was selling, but also the consequences of his betrayal. "What do you propose?" Hartwell asked. "I need time," Thomas said. "I need time to create distance between myself and the technology. I need time to graduate, establish a separate career path, move away from MIT. By the time my partners discover that you have the code and have built the platform, I need to be far enough removed that I can deny any involvement." This was sophisticated betrayal. This was not just selling the technology, but orchestrating a long-term deception that could span years. "How long do you think you need?" Hartwell asked. 6 months, Thomas said. "I graduate in 6 months. I can take a job far away from Boston. I can establish myself as someone pursuing a different career path. When the truth comes out, I can claim that I have no idea how you obtained our code." Hartwell considered this. The timeline actually worked perfectly for him. He wanted time to develop his corporate social network platform anyway. 6 months would give him enough runway to produce something impressive. 6 months would give him time to license the technology to major corporate clients. "I am going to increase my offer," Hartwell said finally. "I will pay you $1,000 for the technology, the documentation, and your ongoing silence. $500 now. $500 paid in 6 months after you have completed your graduation and left Boston. $1,000. Wait, let me recalculate this." Thomas paused, expecting a much larger number, but Hartwell seemed serious. "That is all?" Thomas asked, feeling confused. "That is all," Hartwell said coldly. "You see, I discovered something interesting when I investigated your technology more carefully. Your architecture is innovative, but it is not unassailably unique. I could have my own engineers build something very similar for a reasonable cost. I'm offering you this money not because your technology is worth a fortune, but because having the exact code from the original creators means I can market it much faster to corporate clients. I am paying for speed, not for revolutionary innovation." Thomas felt his stomach drop. He had expected a fortune. He had expected enough money to solve his family's problems and still have money left over for his own future. But $1,000? That was barely more than $100 per month. That was not going to solve anything. But Hartwell was already standing up. "Take it or leave it. That is my final offer. And if you leave this office without accepting, I am going to stop pursuing your technology entirely. I will have my engineers build their own version. And I will make sure your 3 partners know that you came to me first, that you tried to sell them out, and that they should sue you for everything you have. What do you think your reputation will be worth then? What do you think your career will look like?" It was a threat wrapped in business language. It was coercion disguised as negotiation. It was the moment where Thomas faced the full weight of his desperation. He accepted the offer. What happened next was extraordinary. Over the next 3 months, while Marcus, David, and James continued their work on developing the social network platform, Thomas secretly copied all the code. He provided Hartwell with complete documentation. He explained the architecture in meticulous detail. He provided Hartwell with all the technical specifications for how the system worked. Hartwell immediately hired a team of engineers and began developing a corporate version of the platform. He registered the company name Connect Corp. He began approaching large corporations across various industries, explaining that he had revolutionary technology for internal employee communication and collaboration. The corporations were intrigued. By 1996, email was becoming standard in businesses, but internal social networks did not exist. The idea of a platform where employees could collaborate, share documents, communicate across departments, and maintain organizational memory in a searchable system was genuinely innovative. Within 6 months, Hartwell had signed contracts with several major corporations of substantial size and resources, contracts worth millions of dollars in aggregate revenue. By the time Thomas graduated and accepted a job offer in San Francisco, Hartwell had already begun implementation at multiple corporations and had interest from dozens more around the world. Meanwhile, Marcus, David, and James had no idea what had happened. They continued their work on the social network platform. They continued to believe that they were pioneering virgin territory. They continued to believe that they were about to revolutionize human communication forever. Then, 6 months after Thomas graduated, one of Marcus's friends mentioned something casually. "Hey, I heard that this guy Hartwell has a corporate social network platform that is similar to the idea you were working on. You should check it out." Marcus investigated. He looked at Hartwell's Connect Corp platform and his blood ran cold. It was not just similar. It was their architecture. It was their algorithm. It was their code. Every line of programming, every feature, every technical decision they had made was now being used by a completely different company. David and James were called immediately. They compared the Connect Corp platform with their own code and realized the horrible truth. Every aspect of the technology was theirs. Every feature was something they had invented. Every line of code had been written by them or Thomas. They all knew immediately who had done it. They all understood that Thomas had betrayed them. They all recognized the unmistakable patterns of their own code, their own creative decisions, their own technological breakthroughs, now being used by someone else. The explosion. One platform fails. The other becomes a global empire. What happened next was the explosion that would reshape digital communication forever. It was 1997 when the internet was beginning to explode with users. The World Wide Web was becoming mainstream. Millions of people were getting connected for the first time. The infrastructure was growing. The technology was improving. The bandwidth was increasing. The moment was finally right for a true social network to thrive. Robert Hartwell's Connect Corp platform succeeded initially. His corporate social network became incredibly popular in large multinational corporations and enterprises across multiple continents. By 1998, Connect Corp was in use at numerous major corporations in the technology, financial services, and telecommunications sectors. The revenue was substantial, but there was a fundamental problem with the corporate social network model. It was boring. It was useful, but it was not compelling. Employees used it because they had to, not because they wanted to. There was no viral expansion. There was no exponential growth. The platform remained confined to the corporate world, serving its function but not revolutionizing human communication. Meanwhile, Marcus Sterling, David Cho, and James Richardson were rebuilding their platform from scratch. They called it NetLink. They designed it specifically for personal use. They imagined a world where anyone, not just corporate employees, could connect with friends and share their lives in real time. It was 1998 when they launched NetLink. The platform was clunky. The interface was confusing compared to what we would eventually expect from social networks. The graphics were primitive, but it worked. And more importantly, it was compelling. Unlike Hartwell's corporate platform that users were forced to use, NetLink was something that people actually wanted to use. College students started using NetLink to keep track of their classmates. By 1999, NetLink had thousands of users. By 2000, it had hundreds of thousands. By 2001, it had millions. The dot-com bubble exploded in 2000. Most internet companies collapsed. Their unrealistic valuations crashed back to earth. Companies with flashy names and massive marketing budgets disappeared entirely. But NetLink survived. NetLink thrived. NetLink was one of the few technology companies from that era that not only survived the market crash but actually grew stronger during the collapse when competitors were disappearing. By 2002, Marcus Sterling, David Cho, and James Richardson had become extraordinarily wealthy. NetLink had become a global platform with hundreds of millions of users across multiple continents. The platform that Thomas had stolen and sold to Robert Hartwell was now being used by millions of people personally and thousands of organizations corporately. But the personal version had become infinitely more valuable than the corporate version ever could be. NetLink expanded globally with remarkable speed. It became the dominant social network in regions across North America, Europe, and Asia. It became the platform where billions of people shared their lives. It became the infrastructure for human communication in the digital age. By the mid-2000s, NetLink was valued at multiple billions of dollars. By 2010, it was worth tens of billions. By 2020, it was one of the most valuable companies in the entire world. Marcus, David, and James never took another job. They never worked for anyone else. They were now titans of industry. They controlled one of the most powerful communication platforms ever created by human civilization. And Thomas Mendez? Thomas disappeared into obscurity. Thomas took the $1,000 from Robert Hartwell and used it exactly as he had feared, to provide barely any help to his struggling family. His father's medical bills continued to mount. His family's financial situation barely improved. For a brief moment, Thomas felt like he had made the worst decision of his life. But then something unexpected happened. Thomas discovered that gambling was more compelling to him than programming. Thomas had always had a weakness for betting, but he had kept it under control during college when he was focused on the social network project. Once he had money in his pocket, the addiction exploded. Thomas started going to casinos. Thomas started making sports bets online. Thomas started playing poker and underground games where serious money changed hands every night. Within 3 months, he had lost $500. Within 6 months, he had lost nearly all $900 remaining from Hartwell's payment. Thomas had sold his friend's billion-dollar idea for $1,000, and he had gambled away $1,000. So in the end, he had nothing. He had destroyed his relationships with his closest friends and had nothing to show for it except debt. Meanwhile, Robert Hartwell became financially comfortable, but not extraordinarily wealthy. Connect Corp was successful as a corporate solution for a specific market niche, but it was not revolutionary. It never became the global platform that NetLink became. The corporate social networking space remained limited compared to the personal social networking revolution. Hartwell eventually sold Connect Corp to a larger technology corporation for a substantial sum in the mid-2000s. He became a millionaire, comfortable for life, but he never became a billionaire. He had purchased the wrong version of the platform. He had acquired the corporate solution when the real value was always going to be in the personal platform. By 2000, Thomas had lost everything. He had moved around the country trying to escape the shame of what he had done. He worked odd jobs. He struggled to maintain employment because his reputation in the technology sector had been permanently damaged by rumors of his betrayal. He had burned bridges so thoroughly with Marcus, David, and James that they would not even speak to him. They would not return his calls. They would not read his emails. To them, Thomas was dead. Then came the moment when Thomas saw his 3 former friends on the cover of major business publications and technology magazines. The headlines read, "3 billionaires who changed human communication forever." Marcus Sterling, David Cho, and James Richardson had founded NetLink in 1998 and had transformed it into a global empire worth hundreds of billions of dollars. They were being celebrated as visionaries. They were being interviewed by major media outlets. They were being honored as some of the most important entrepreneurs in human history. Thomas was working in a warehouse in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, making minimum wage. Pause here and consider. How would you feel if you had betrayed your best friends for money and had then watched them become some of the wealthiest people in the world while you became nothing? How would you live with that knowledge? How would you face yourself in the mirror every single day for decades? Thomas did what many people in similar circumstances have done. He tried to hide. He tried to pretend that his past did not exist. He used false names when possible. He avoided social media entirely. He lived a completely anonymous life, working minimum wage jobs and renting small apartments in forgotten cities. But the guilt never went away. The regret never diminished. Every article about NetLink, every news story about Marcus, David, and James, every report about the company's expansion into new markets and new countries, every achievement reminded Thomas of what he had thrown away. Every time he saw their faces in a magazine or on a television screen, he felt the weight of his betrayal crushing down on him. The confession. Thomas reveals the complete truth. 25 years later, in 2021, Thomas Mendez received a direct message on social media from James Richardson. It was the first communication from any of his former friends in more than 2 decades. The message was simple. "I know it was you. I have always known. I am finally ready to hear your explanation. Meet me." Thomas felt his entire body go numb. 2 decades of running, 2 decades of hiding, 2 decades of pretending his past did not exist. And finally, someone was calling him to account for what he had done. They met in a coffee shop in Boston. 27 years had passed since the day Thomas had betrayed his three best friends. Both men had aged visibly. James was now in his early 50s, dressed in an expensive suit that spoke of his extraordinary wealth and success. Thomas was also in his early 50s, but he looked 10 years older. His face was weathered. His eyes were tired. His posture was that of a man who had been carrying a heavy weight for a very long time. "I need to know why," James said simply, the same question he would have asked decades earlier if he had been given the chance. "I need to understand what was going through your head when you decided to betray us." Thomas began to cry, not the tears of someone seeking sympathy, but the tears of someone finally confronting the full weight of his choices after more than 20 years. "I was scared," Thomas said. "My parents were struggling. I was scared of failing. I was scared of spending years on a dream that might never become reality. And when Hartwell offered me money, it seemed like certainty in the face of uncertainty. It seemed like the safe choice. It seemed like the only choice I could make to save my family." "You sold your best friend's billion-dollar idea for $1,000, James said quietly. "And then what? Did you become wealthy? Did your family's problems get solved?" Thomas shook his head. "No, I gambled away the money. Within 6 months, all $1,000 was gone. I lost everything and gained nothing except guilt. I have spent every single day for the past 25 years regretting that choice. Every time I saw your name in the news, every time I saw you on a magazine cover, every time I heard about Netlink's success, every single moment was a reminder of what I had thrown away." "Do you know what I want to know?" James asked. "I want to know if you understand the magnitude of what you did. I want to know if you understand that by selling our technology to Hartwell for $1,000, you cost us not just $1,000, but billions, billions of dollars in future earnings, billions of dollars that could have changed the world, billions of dollars that could have been used to fund research and development, to create jobs, to revolutionize how people communicate globally." "I understand," Thomas said. "I understand better than anyone could possibly understand. Because I have watched it happen. I have watched you and Marcus and David build something extraordinary. I have watched you become some of the wealthiest and most influential people in the world. And I have watched myself become nothing. I have watched my life pass me by in obscurity and regret. Robert Hartwell became a millionaire from your betrayal," James continued. "He sold Connect Corp for a substantial sum to a larger technology corporation. His life changed, but your life did not change. Your parents still struggled. Your family's problems did not get solved. Your sacrifice gained you nothing and lost you everything. That is the cruelest part," Thomas said. "If I had stayed loyal to you three, if I had turned down Hartwell's offer, if I had believed in our dream, we would have been billionaires together. All four of us. We would have changed the world together. My parents would have been taken care of. My family would have been secure. Instead, I sold the idea for $1,000 and lost it all to gambling. I destroyed my friendship with you, with Marcus, and with David, and I gained nothing." Thomas then provided James with a complete timeline of what had happened. He explained exactly how he had stolen the code. He explained exactly what he had provided to Hartwell. He explained exactly how much money he had been paid, and how quickly he had lost it. He explained the years of guilt that followed. He explained the decades of watching his former friends become extraordinarily successful, while he worked minimum wage jobs in forgotten cities. "I came here today to tell you this," Thomas concluded, "not to ask for forgiveness. I do not deserve forgiveness. Not to ask for a second chance at friendship. I do not deserve that either. I came here to tell you that I am truly sorry, that I understand what I did, that I have spent my entire life regretting it, and that I will carry that regret until the day I die." James listened to everything without interrupting. When Thomas finished, James was silent for a very long time. "I am going to do something," James finally said. "I am going to tell Marcus and David that you came forward. I am going to tell them the complete truth about what happened and why, and then we are going to decide, together, whether we want to take any action." "What kind of action?" Thomas asked, his voice trembling. "That remains to be seen," James said. "The moral lesson, greed's terrible price and the value of what you cannot buy." In the weeks that followed, Marcus Sterling, David Cho, and James Richardson met to discuss what should happen regarding Thomas Mendez. They had not all been in the same room in more than 2 decades. The reunion was emotional and complicated. They discussed whether they should sue Thomas for fraud, intellectual property theft, and breach of partnership agreements. They had sufficient evidence to pursue legal action, They could potentially recover damages, but they ultimately decided against it. Thomas has already been punished, Marcus said. He has spent 25 years living with the consequences of his choice. He sold something worth billions for $1,000 and then lost that money to gambling. He watched his 3 best friends become successful and powerful while he worked minimum wage jobs. He has been carrying the weight of his betrayal every single day of his life. That is punishment enough. What they decided instead was to hire Thomas. They offered him a position in their company at a substantial salary, not because Thomas deserved forgiveness, but because they understood something deeper. The real tragedy of Thomas's betrayal was not the money he cost them, but the friendship that was destroyed and the trust that was broken. Thomas could never rebuild what he had destroyed with his 3 friends, but perhaps he could spend the rest of his career working to accomplish the vision that they had originally shared together. Perhaps he could dedicate his remaining working years to the dream that he had betrayed decades earlier. Thomas accepted the position. He spent the next 15 years working as part of the team that continued to develop and expand NetLink's technology. He never became as wealthy as Marcus, David, or James, but he became financially secure. More importantly, he rebuilt a version of the friendships that he had destroyed, though they were never quite the same as they had been in those early days at MIT. And this is where we arrive at the deepest truth of this story. The price of greed is not paid in money. The price of greed is paid in trust destroyed, in friendships shattered, in opportunities lost, and in the knowledge of what could have been if only you had made a different choice. Thomas Mendez had sacrificed his friendship with 3 brilliant people for $1,000. He had sacrificed billions in future earnings for immediate security that never materialized. He had sacrificed decades of his life to guilt and regret over a choice that took only moments to make. And Robert Hartwell, the man who benefited from Thomas's betrayal, never became a billionaire. He became a millionaire. He became comfortable, but he never achieved the extraordinary success that would have been his if he had been wise enough to encourage Thomas not to betray his partners. If Hartwell had instead urged Thomas to stay loyal and to believe in the dream, Hartwell might have been able to partner with NetLink in its growth. He might have become a billionaire alongside Marcus, David, and James. But Hartwell was too greedy. Hartwell wanted everything now, and by being greedy now, he sacrificed the possibility of becoming extraordinarily successful later. This is the lesson that repeats throughout human history. Greed destroys the greedy person first. Betrayal destroys the betrayer before it destroys anyone else. And trust, once destroyed, takes decades to rebuild, if it can be rebuilt at all. In the corporate world, in families, in friendships, the same pattern repeats endlessly. People sacrifice long-term success for short-term gain. People betray their closest allies for immediate security. People choose desperation over faith in the future. And in the end, they lose not just the money or the opportunity, but something far more valuable: the trust of people they cared about and the knowledge that they could have been part of something extraordinary if only they had believed. Thomas Mendez's story is not unique. It is repeated in different forms across business, across families, across nations. People are always facing the same choice: loyalty or betrayal, faith in the future or desperation in the present, trust in partnership or greed for individual gain. The question for you, the viewer, is this: when you face that choice in your own life, what will you decide? Final reflection: the choice that defines your character. And so the story of Thomas Mendez, Marcus Sterling, David Cho, and James Richardson comes to its conclusion. But your story, the viewer's story, continues, because you have now been presented with the same questions that faced these 4 young entrepreneurs at MIT decades ago. The fundamental question is this: what will you choose when you are faced with the decision between short-term security and long-term vision? What will you choose when someone offers you money today to betray the people closest to you? What will you choose when desperation whispers in your ear that you should take the certain path rather than believe in the uncertain future? Thomas chose greed. Thomas chose desperation. Thomas chose to betray his friends for money that turned out to be worthless, and he spent the rest of his life regretting that choice. But here is what we need to understand. Thomas was not an evil person. Thomas was not a criminal mastermind. Thomas was a young man who made a desperate decision under pressure. Thomas was someone who valued his family's security more than his loyalty to his friends. Thomas was human. He made a choice that millions of people make every single day: the choice to prioritize immediate survival over long-term vision. The tragedy of Thomas's story is not that he was uniquely bad, but that he was universally ordinary. He made a choice that countless people make, and that choice cost him everything. Consider this. If Thomas had stayed loyal to his three partners, if he had believed in the dream, if he had turned down Robert Hartwell's offer, how would his life have been different? Thomas would have been a billionaire. Thomas would have been celebrated as one of the architects of the revolution in human communication. Thomas would have had the security he was seeking, multiplied thousands of times over. And most importantly, Thomas would have maintained the friendships that mattered more than any amount of money. But instead, Thomas chose to sacrifice those friendships for $1,000. And in the end, he had neither the money nor the friends. This is the lesson that must be absorbed deeply. Greed is a poison that primarily harms the greedy person. Betrayal is a trap that primarily captures the betrayer. And the greatest form of security is not immediate money, but loyalty, friendship, and belief in a shared vision. So we ask you, viewer, these critical questions as you leave this video. First, who do you believe was the most foolish character in this entire story? Was it Thomas for selling the technology for $1,000? Was it Robert Hartwell for not recognizing that the corporate market was limited? Was it Marcus, David, and James for not protecting their intellectual property through patents and legal agreements? Or was it all of them for not recognizing that the real value was never in the code itself, but in the character and determination of the people who created the code? Second, at what point in this story did you suspect that Thomas was the one who had committed the betrayal? Did you guess early based on the subtle clues? Did you suspect each of the four friends in turn before settling on Thomas? Or were you genuinely shocked by the revelation? Third, what would you have done in Thomas's position? If your parents were about to become homeless and someone offered you $1,000 for your company's source code, would you take it? Would you stay loyal to your three best friends? Would you believe that the vision would eventually succeed? Or would you choose certainty over hope? And fourth, the most important question, are you currently in a situation in your own life where you are facing a similar choice? Are you being tempted to betray someone close to you for immediate gain? Are you being asked to choose between loyalty and security? Are you being pressured to make a decision that will destroy your integrity for short-term benefit? We invite you to comment below with your answers to these questions. Tell us who you thought was the culprit before we revealed it was Thomas. Tell us what you would have done in his position. Tell us if this story reminded you of a betrayal you have witnessed or experienced in your own life. Tell us whether you think Thomas ultimately deserved the redemption that Marcus, David, and James offered him. And if this story moved you, if it made you think about your own choices and your own integrity, then please subscribe to this channel. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another investigation into the hidden betrayals, the devastating secrets, and the life-changing decisions that define human stories. Share this video with someone you know who has betrayed you, or someone you know whom you are considering betraying. Share it with people who need to understand that the price of greed is paid not in money, but in friendship, in trust, and in the knowledge of what could have been. Because in the end, this is not a story about technology or social networks or venture capitalism. This is a story about character. This is a story about the choices we make when no one is watching. This is a story about the difference between who we want to be and who we actually become when pressure and desperation push us to our limits. Thomas Mendez wanted to be a loyal friend, but he became a traitor. Marcus Sterling, David Cho, and James Richardson wanted to build something revolutionary, and they did, despite Thomas's betrayal. Robert Hartwell wanted to become extraordinarily wealthy, and he became comfortable, but never extraordinary. The question now is, who will you become? What choices will you make? And when you are old and looking back on your life, what will you regret? The answer to those questions begins with the choices you make today. We will see you in the next investigation. Stay vigilant, stay loyal, stay true to yourself. Share, leave your opinion. Like this is your channel, The Destructive Secret.